Hello again, welcome. Our next conversation is about the COVID emergency and climate change in Africa. Our guest is such an inspiring man. He is currently the coordinator of United Nations Regional Climate Change. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you an applause to Dr. Richard Munang, which I think we have already him with us. Good morning, Dr. Richard Munang. Thank you for joining us. We can't wait to hear you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Catarina. The organizers of the Planetiers World Gathering, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor for me to join you today. And joining you at a time, as you already know, is different as compared to just a year ago. So I'll start with an African proverb. If you pick up one end of the stick, you will also pick up the other. This African proverb provides and encapsulates the noble gallant fight to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals under the COVID-19 global emergency. It means we cannot pick just one end of the stick. We must be able to address these challenges in a holistic way. As we gather here today, we know that the negative impacts of COVID-19 has exceeded the devastation of the 2008 global financial crisis by about 60%. That's what the science is telling us and the statistics are telling us. But this brings to light very grave questions that we must answer. And these questions goes thus: what becomes of the future that was envisaged in the Sustainable Development Goals? That no one should go to bed hungry, that no youth should suffer poverty, where no mother suffers the anguish of being unable to feed or clothe her child, where no parent suffers the shame of being unable to send his or her child to school. What happens to the future where the development that will pursue a cause without compromising our environment, that the air we breathe, the soil we grow our food on, the water we drink, and the food we eat happens in a way that works with the environment? These are questions that stand before this 2020 Planetiers World Gathering. And the momentum for answers need to be generated and escalated in this gathering that comes at the momentous time. I say momentous for two reasons. Firstly, this year 2020 marks the start of the decade of action, the start of the final 10 years before the expiration of the Sustainable Development Goals. And this means that the clock is ticking. This means that time is against us. But more importantly, as we are racing against time, we are doing so under the most unpredictable and the most unprecedented times in modern history. The COVID-19 pandemic has undoubtedly challenged each and every one of us, ranging to economies and societies globally. Africa, like the rest of the globe, have suffered the consequences of COVID-19. Lives and livelihoods have been lost. Opportunities and hopes of millions have been dashed. In Africa, we are talking of a 1.4% decline in gross domestic product and a potential loss of nearly 50% of all jobs in the entire continent. This will deny over 1.2 billion citizens income opportunities, enterprise opportunities that they deserve. However, even as the spotlight is shone on COVID-19, we cannot afford to be blind to the existing challenges that threaten meaningful realization of the Sustainable Development Goals in the African continent. I'm talking of a very precarious food insecurity where already 257 million people go to bed hungry. I'm talking of the over 12 million youth who graduate into the labor market but can only compete with 3 million jobs. This youthful population is a ticking time bomb. And more importantly, I'm talking of climate change, which is the elephant in the room, which according to the latest United in Science report, published just a few weeks ago, unequivocally made it clear that climate change has not stopped for COVID-19. This report shows that as the global economy rolls back to life, emissions trajectories will continue to rise towards the dangerous above 2 degrees warming, a scenario that would only escalate and exacerbate the worsening climate change impacts. The high frequencies of drought that we see, the high frequencies of floods that we see will only worsen. And will worsen more so in Africa, which is already warming faster than the entire globe, disproportionately pushing the poor, who are the most vulnerable to climate change because they lack the resources to quickly recover from climate change effects. Already the changing climate episodes manifested through droughts, manifested through cyclones, have forced millions of people in the African continent in need of humanitarian assistance, have deteriorated farmlands and pastures, causing a spike in food prices of over 300% every year. These are existential threats to the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals. These are existential threats to drive transformational development for everyone. The COVID-19 emergency is further compounding these precarious scenarios. But to build transformational resilient development, we must be able to look at things in a different way. We must be able to deal with these emergencies together. And this then leads us to ask three fundamental questions, which the first one goes thus: how do we reimagine, reorganize, and redesign Africa's development under the changing climate and the unsettling realities of COVID-19? How do we leverage the efforts to build climate resilience as a strategic to rebuild back better, to rebuild back different, more inclusive and sustainable economies that unlock the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals? And the third question that we must be able to answer is, how can this rebuilding lift the youth from the fangs of unemployment and salvage the informal sector to competitively position Africa at the global level? Answering these questions offer valuable lessons from Africa that can be shared with the entire globe. But the answers to these questions lie in strategically leveraging what we have. The answers to these questions lie in strategically leveraging climate action, which is Goal 13 of the Sustainable Development Goals. These realities on how we can leverage climate action, on how we can strategically apply climate action solutions, leveraging on what Africa have is crucial. And what Africa have got is what we call the catalytic sectors. The catalytic sectors of clean energy, 365 days of sunshine, of nature-based driven agriculture that offers the shortest route to accelerated realization of multiple Sustainable Development Goals. We are working with nature, not against nature, to cultivate food, coupled with value addition using clean energy, be it in preservation or processing, offers the shortest route to unlock multiple Sustainable Development Goals. Studies after studies and empirical evidence have shown that using nature-based approaches, whether we're talking agroforestry, whether we're talking application of organic fertilizers, increases yields by up to about 128% under the changing climate. This directly contributes to addressing food security, which is Goal 2, and also contributes to reducing post-harvest losses and protecting ecosystems, which is Goal 15. Decentralizing clean energy solutions to reverse post-harvest losses, which currently, as we speak, are costing the African continent each and every year $48 billion US. Reversing these post-harvest losses and adding value can create about 17 million jobs and catalyze an agro-economy that is worth 1 trillion before the end of this decade. This reality shows that when we use a system thinking approach, when we use a holistic approach where we can be able to turn challenges into opportunities, we can address and achieve multiple Sustainable Development Goals. And this doesn't only end within the agro value chain. Turning waste or agricultural waste to domestic clean energy or fuel briquettes is helping to relieve pressure of forests and reverse deforestation and land degradation that's currently costing the continent $68 billion US each and every year. The clean cooking solutions can actually be able to create alternatives that can replace the charcoal economy, which is worth 20 billion, and cut indoor pollution that is currently costing over 200 billion per year in medical liabilities in the African continent. This represents enterprise opportunities, especially for the youth in non-capital intensive areas. And youth guided can be able to tap through and seize these opportunities. Through our work in the region, we have retooled thousands of youth skills to turn these challenges into opportunities. And they're turning these challenges into opportunities and seizing these opportunities, not only to build climate action enterprises, but to show that challenges are disguised opportunities. But as this African proverb tells us, a little rain each day will fill the river to overflowing. This is how seemingly little climate action solutions applied strategically can lead us down the path of sustainable, inclusive, competitive economies that we need to guarantee the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals amidst the escalation of emergencies like COVID-19. We now must make this the norm and not the exception. And to do so, some of the key tenets emerging from the work that we do in the region are as follows. The first is that we cannot be able to build resilient transformational development without building it through the informal sector, which accounts for over 80% of all employment in sub-Saharan African region. Currently, as we speak, up to 80% of young workers in nearly all school-to-work transition falls into the category of informal employment. Efforts to rebuild resilient, inclusive economies must focus on where the majority of people draw their livelihood, and that is the informal sector. And that takes me to the second point, which is that to build any society or community or regions, actions must target on what I call the engine sector, in this case, the catalytic sectors. When we look at the entire African continent, the entire agro-value chain combined with clean energy solutions represents the Africa's catalytic sectors. A multidimensional successes are already demonstrated from this approach. For example, decentralizing clean energy solutions of simple solar dryers among farmers, whether we're talking cassava farmers or rice farmers, have proven to increase incomes by up to 150% and reduce post-harvest losses by 30%. Decentralizing solar dryers to the informal food traders in markets across the continent to enable them dehydrate, to enable them preserve their harvest that remains unsold at the end of the day is cutting post-harvest losses by up to 30%. And that takes me to the third point, which is financing must be both low risk and accessible, and needs to build on institutions that are most accessible to the informal sector players. Because as we know today, up to 90% in the informal sector transact in cash. Formal financial structures are out of their reach. The solution, however, lies in working through institutions that account for them. And these are communal cooperatives. Every society or community in Africa have got what we call a communal cooperative. This cooperative needs to be leveraged as structures for accountability. They need to be leveraged as structures for traceability of actions in financing the informal sector enterprise development. For example, through the work we do, leveraging on this cooperative, we have worked to foster agro-value chain actors into what we call village savings and investment groups. Through these, agro-value chain actors pool their resources to invest in diverse value addition actions that cut post-harvest losses and unlock additional income opportunities. Through these groups, youth have been engaged to come up with pay-as-you-go solar dryer services. Such collaborations are helping to recoup food lost through post-harvest losses. Such collaborations are helping to increase income. Such collaborations are proving that they are actually employment engines for the young people. And that takes me to my last point. We are living in different times, and we must prioritize to invest and nurture selflessness and kindness among the youth. The population of Africa is actually 60% youthful. These young people graduate into the labor market to look for jobs but the jobs are not there. But what we must do is to inspire, is to motivate them to usher themselves to drive climate action solutions. Through our work, we are investing in youth from all walks of life by structurally guiding them and inspiring them to improve, to refine and adapt their skills, their talents, and leverage on their creativity towards finding purpose in what they do to drive climate action. We are guiding them to be selfless, to be kind, and to find satisfaction in actions that can touch many lives. And this is through what we call innovative volunteerism, where willing youth are engaged. As a result of these, we are seeing thousands of youth across the entire continent leveraging on innovative volunteerism to establish climate action solutions using locally available material to develop, for example, solar dryers that I mentioned, to innovations like pay-as-you-go solar drying centers, to developing brigades whereby they're now replacing charcoal by turning agricultural waste to these fuel briquettes, by turning agricultural waste to biofertilizers, to the development of clean cook stoves. These are just a few examples of youth-led climate actions that are touching many lives and showing that when people are guided and given the right tools, they can drive transformational change for people and planet. Just as an African proverb tells us, rain does not fall on one roof alone. These successes that I've enumerated, the successes we are seeing across the entire African continent, are testament to the fact that we can drive transformational change and build climate resilience for people and planet. It is my sincere hope and belief that we will work together and make these accessible solutions the norm and not the exception for the vulnerable people across the entire globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Richard Munang, for such an inspiring words. Thank you for joining us. I would love to ask you some questions, but we are running out of time. But my questions weren't needed after your speech. So I think it's very important here for us to know that climate change has not stopped amid COVID-19. And I think if we don't act now, like Dr. Richard Munang told us, we still continue to see and suffer the impacts of climate changes. And we don't want and we don't need it. So thank you very much. We will see you in the next minutes. Thank you, Dr. Richard Munang, again. Thank you so much.